Thank you very much, and greetings to everyone. First of all, I want to express my sincere gratitude to the organizers for inviting me to this important dialogue. It is an absolute honor to be part of this group. I'm looking forward to listening, to sharing, and learning from you all. Let me begin by recalling the President of the European Commission's words on migration. Here I quote, "Throughout centuries, migration has defined our societies, enriched our cultures, and shaped many of our lives. And this will always be the case," end quote. So indeed, as Ms. von der Leyen points out, one of the major features of being human lies precisely in our ability, a mobility which is fundamental to advancing science, technology, broadening our thoughts, innovating our practice, transforming cultures, above all, enlivening our creativity and imagination. So at the moment, Europe is facing increasing ethnic, religious, and cultural diversity owing to the contribution to migrants and refugees. And each country can respond to these issues differently according to their historical experience and current social, economic, and political situations. But equally, their ideological self-image developed over time. For instance, some country may be holding the ethno-nationalist self-image, and other countries may see itself as a multicultural society. So I will highlight some of the challenges, but each of you will have your own ideas. For instance, I would highlight the rebuffing of the myth of the refugee and the migrants as burden to host country. That's one. Secondly, inequality of opportunity in education and meaningful work and livelihood, another. And thirdly, looking at the importance of integration, but integration is a lack of understanding that integration is not really linear, but multifaceted. It's a mosaic of a shifting experience. And the next one would be thinking about the social culture dimension of integration tend to be heavily influenced by public attitudes. And this was, of course, leading to the challenges of over-politicizing integration of refugee and migrants. So in such a context, in light of all these challenges, but we also know, that's why you're here, Europe has stressed a crucial role that education can play in guiding refugees and migrants' integration in their host communities. And here's a story from my city, Brighton, in England. In 2015, two teenagers, Suleiman and Elias, were amongst the first refugees to reach UK's shore after fleeing their war-torn homelands. One tracked on foot across many borders in the Middle East and in the end stowed away in a refrigerated van entering the UK. The other braved the deadly crossing of Mediterranean on a small boat. They both arrived in Brighton. And the students and head teachers in the local college opened their arms to welcome these two displaced youth. In addition to support from educators and multi-agencies, students in the college also stepped up, helped the displaced young people with studying English language and other subjects. In return, Suleiman and Elias shared their talent and supported other newly arrived refugees. 5 years on, Suleiman is now studying mathematics in Oxford. Probably one of us in Oxford would know this fact, and Elias is studying medicine in another UK university. This is a much celebrated, a triumphant story about inclusive education. It seems like education does only help displaced people to settle in home country, embrace social relations. It also offers space to nurture core human values such as empathy, compassion, mutual respect, and appreciation difference. So these are the Arigato's core values in your approach, Amito. And these are vital for students to resist and overcome prejudice, stereotype, and discrimination. And equally, we could see through the inclusive education, displaced young people can have greater opportunity to access further and higher education, thereby leading to meaningful work and dignified livelihood, laying the foundation to strengthen socio-economic development for refugees and migrant families and their community, thereby contributing to addressing the root causes of violent displacement in the first place and preventing future crises. This year, I facilitated research on behalf of G20 Interfaith Forum that explored faith's contribution to quality and equality of education. So I will speak from that perspective. I have learned that faith actor and the interfaith organizations have long been empowering local communities in supporting refugees and migrants and inspiring inclusive and caring education in all settings, not least through promoting interreligious literacy and interfaith dialogue. Now, from faith perspective, education inclusion is more than ensuring displaced children to access schooling or higher education in the host country. In fact, faith-inspired educational programs tend to conceive inclusion as, above all, the nurturing and displaced children as spiritual beings and as supporting their holistic well-being. Indeed, by returning to their human dignity, once violated by war and other tragedies, refugees and migrants can better integrate in the host country and make greater contribution to the communities. I will take 1 minute to draw on 5 sort of features from my research with the faith actors and interfaith organizations, and which seems inclusive education is paramount to refugee and migrant students' integration and well-being. The first is creating safe and welcoming hospital caring environment for all the displaced. A safe space without interference of fear is foundation to learning and well-being. Hospitality invites mutual respect. Care affirms students' identities, which in turn can add to classroom diversity, acknowledge refugees and migrants as an asset to the educational institution and to the community. Second is offering counseling and psychosocial healing support to the displaced student. Inclusive education should attend to students' well-being needs. Refugees and migrants, such as Suleiman and Elias, have been through unimaginable trauma. So therefore, healing through educational counseling, mentoring, and other social emotional support is imperative. Third is introducing inclusive interfaith curricula to enable students to appreciate difference, enhance mutual understanding, and deepen empathy and compassion. Exploring different faith, cultures, traditions, and worldviews can foster critical thinking and better immunize students against the virus of prejudice and xenophobia. Fourth is facilitating meaningful dialogue and encounter among students. Like the college in Brighton, many schools and higher education institutions in Europe are multicultural communities, including students who are themselves second and third generation of migrants and refugees. Dialogue can help students understand the lived reality of displaced and the prospect of integration without the threat of assimilation. Lastly, is engaging all students as cultural ambassadors and agents of inclusion and social cohesion. This includes empowering young people to take responsibility for reaching out to displaced students. At the Brighton College, the student in the college in Brighton did, develop friendship and help engender a sense of belonging, community. And equally, arts, music, sports, and other youth activities are key to help integration and mutual understanding. So just to conclude, that inclusive education, that's illustrated for policymakers who aim to improve social cultural integration, should not really target refugee and migrant students as a separate segment of education or society, but instead, inclusive education from policy level should aim at developing a holistic approach to nurturing everybody's well-being, especially the displaced, and instilling values in all students. I'll stop there.
Thank you very much, Scherto, for this.
How do we integrate policy in the practice is another. And I think for the G20, we have made important policy recommendation, that is, provide continued training and professional development, professional learning for teachers, because only by nurturing teachers, supporting teachers, can we bring some of these new innovative practice into the classroom? And equally, education needs to self-reflect. What is the core aim of education? And Nico talk about becoming ethical. And I tend to say there's an ABC that should be really important for education. And this is, again, sort of coming out of my research with the faith, interfaith communities. A is awareness, awareness that we are all spiritual beings, over and above our local contingencies, over above our identity as ethnic identity or class and place of origin, religion, and so on and so forth. So that's a awareness of a spiritual being. B is really looking at education. What is the aim of education? Education is enabling us to become more fully human for one another, for ourselves, for one another. And that's where the values can be lived. And the C stands for community. What is education? Education itself should be a community, but education also should plant the seeds, allow us to live together as community. So if we think about education itself needs to change, but equally under the really brilliant education policies, teachers training needs to be a priority. Teacher professional development, I would say, priority.